You ever have one of those moments where life throws you something unexpected, but in that moment, you realize it's not random, it's a message? I remember walking down the street, and there it was, a little lost dog, scared, confused, desperate for someone to help. And as I reached down to rescue him, I realized, this isn't just about saving a dog. This is about what happens when you choose to show up for life, when you choose to be the one who steps in instead of walking by. Because how we respond to those moments reveals the truth about who we are. I want you to think about this for a moment. What is it that really defines us as human beings? Is it our accomplishments, our titles, the money we make, or the things we collect along the way? Or is it something deeper, something that lies underneath all of that noise? I believe it's compassion. It's the ability to feel for another, to put ourselves in their shoes, to act not because we have to, but because something inside of us knows it's the right thing to do. And sometimes life has a way of putting us in situations where that compassion either comes alive or it withers. That day, standing on the street with this lost little dog trembling in front of me, I had a choice. And isn't that what life always comes down to? A choice. Do we look away? Do we walk by pretending we didn't see it? Or do we step into that moment with our full heart and decide, I'm going to do something about this? I'll be honest. There was a part of me that thought, I'm busy, I don't have time, someone else will come along and take care of it. But that's the lie we tell ourselves when we don't want to feel the weight of responsibility. And the truth is, someone else might not show up. Sometimes you are the someone. When I reached down and picked him up, I felt the fear shaking through his body. His eyes were wide, searching, unsure if he could trust me. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Compassion isn't just about feeling sorry for someone or something. Compassion is power. It's strength. It's the ability to create safety, to create certainty in a world that often feels chaotic. That dog didn't just need food or shelter. He needed to feel that someone cared enough to hold him, to show him he wasn't alone. And isn't that what we all need? Every single one of us, deep down, is looking for that sense of safety, that reassurance that we matter, that we're not invisible. And sometimes the smallest gestures of compassion, the smile, the hand on the shoulder, the moment where you actually stop and listen, those moments have the power to shift someone's entire reality. We underestimate it because it seems so small, but what feels small to you can feel life-saving to someone else. Compassion takes courage. It takes courage to open your heart when it would be easier to close it. It takes courage to give when you're not sure if there will be anything left for you. But here's what I've learned. When you give from compassion, you're not losing anything, and you're expanding. You're stretching your soul. And that expansion, that stretch, is what makes you grow into the person you're meant to be. I held that little dog and I thought, if I don't do this, who will? And that's the exact same thought that drives us to change the world in bigger ways. Whether it's rescuing a lost animal, helping a stranger in need, or lifting up a friend who's falling apart, the question is always the same. If not me, then who? And the answer is, it has to be you. It has to be us. Because every act of compassion, no matter how small, sends out a ripple that touches more lives than you will ever realize. You see, the dog didn't just need rescuing. He reminded me that I needed rescuing too. Not from the outside world, but from the parts of me that can get too busy, too distracted, too wrapped up in my own problems. Compassion pulled me back into alignment with what really matters. It reminded me that power isn't about control, it's about care. Power isn't about how loud you are, it's about how deeply you can connect. And here's the truth. If you want to change your life, if you want to transform the way you show up in the world, start with compassion. Start with choosing to care when it's easier not to. Start with reaching out when it's tempting to turn away. Because compassion is not weakness, it's the ultimate strength. It's the force that unites us, lifts us, and reminds us of our shared humanity. And in that moment with that little lost dog, I wasn't just rescuing him. I was tapping into the deepest truth about who we are at our best. Compassion is power. Life has this way of surprising us, doesn't it? One moment you're moving through your day with your plans, your schedule, your to-do list, and then suddenly something happens that wasn't written into the script. You didn't see it coming. You didn't plan for it. And at first glance, it feels like an interruption, an inconvenience. That's exactly what it felt like when I saw that lost dog. I wasn't planning to stop. I wasn't out searching for a stray. I had things to do. And yet there he was, scared, vulnerable, needing help. And what struck me is how often life shows up exactly like that. It doesn't always hand you what you expect. It gives you tests disguised as inconveniences, opportunities wrapped in challenges. When we're faced with those moments, our natural instinct is to push them away. We tell ourselves, I don't have time for this. I've got bigger problems, someone else will deal with it. But what if that moment is life whispering to you, saying, here's your chance. Here's the doorway you've been asking for. Are you going to step through it? See, the opportunities that truly transform us don't usually look like opportunities at first. They look like interruptions. They look like challenges. They look like a stray dog on the side of the road when you're already running late. But if you have the awareness to see them for what they are, they can change everything. That little dog was more than a dog. He was a reflection, a reminder. He was a test asking me, will you walk past or will you stop? Will you see this as a problem or will you recognize it as a gift? And that's exactly what life does to all of us. Every day we're presented with moments that seem small, moments that feel like obstacles, but hidden inside them is a chance to grow, to give, to become more than we were yesterday. Think about your own life for a second. How many times have you faced something you didn't want, something you didn't expect, and later looked back and realized that was the very thing that propelled you forward? Maybe it was the job you lost that forced you to start the business you'd been dreaming of. Maybe it was the relationship that ended that finally gave you the courage to rediscover yourself. Maybe it was that one obstacle that built the strength you now rely on every single day. At the time, it looked like pain. It looked like loss. But in reality, it was opportunity dressed in disguise. We all love the idea of opportunity when it comes packaged the way we want it, neatly wrapped, exciting, convenient. But the truth is, real opportunities rarely arrive that way. They show up unannounced, uncomfortable, even unwanted. They test your patience, they stretch your heart, and they demand your presence. And when you rise to the occasion, when you say yes in that moment, that's when you discover who you really are. I didn't rescue that dog because it was convenient. I rescued him because I realized it was a chance to practice what I believe in, a chance to show up as the kind of person I want to be. And that's the invitation life gives all of us. Will you show up even when it's inconvenient? Will you rise to the challenge even when no one's watching? Because that's where your true character is built. The funny thing is, when I look back, that so-called inconvenience turned into one of the most meaningful moments of my life. And that's the beauty of it. What feels like a burden in the beginning often becomes a blessing in the end. That dog wasn't just lost. He was an opportunity for me to find something in myself. An opportunity to remind myself that I'm here not just to live my own story, but to step into the stories life places in front of me. So the next time life throws something unexpected in your path, pause before you push it away. Ask yourself, what if this isn't an interruption? What if this is an invitation? Because the truth is, the greatest opportunities of your life are often disguised as challenges. And it's only when you have the courage to embrace them that you discover just how powerful you really are. Opportunities are always there. You just have to learn to see through the disguise. When I think back to that moment with the lost dog, what stays with me most isn't just the act of picking him up or taking him to safety. What stays with me is the connection. That instant when his eyes softened, when his trembling began to settle, when he realized he wasn't alone anymore. That was the breakthrough. And it reminded me of one of the greatest truths in life. Connection transforms everything. See, in that moment, it wasn't about me saving a dog. It was about creating trust where there was fear, creating calm where there was chaos, and creating love where there was uncertainty. That's what connection does. It bridges the gap between two beings who don't even speak the same language, who come from completely different worlds, yet somehow find common ground. And isn't that the essence of every relationship we value in life? It's not the words we say, it's the energy we bring, the presence we give, the willingness to be there fully. So many people go through life starving for connection. They have thousands of followers, hundreds of contacts in their phone, people they talk to every day, and yet they feel alone. Why? Because true connection isn't about proximity. It's not about how many people you know. It's about the depth of presence you bring when you're with someone. It's about making another soul feel seen, heard, and valued. That little dog didn't need 1,000 people to walk past him. He needed one person to stop and say, I see you. You matter. I'm here. And when you really think about it, isn't that what all of us want? Don't we want to know that we're not invisible? Don't we want to feel that someone actually sees who we are beyond the mask, beyond the surface? That's why connection is so powerful, because when you connect, you transform not only the other person, but yourself. You tap into the part of you that's bigger than your fears, bigger than your ego, bigger than your excuses. Here's the thing: connection takes courage. It means you have to lower your walls. It means you have to risk vulnerability. It means you have to give a piece of yourself with no guarantee that it will be returned. But when you do, you open the door to transformation. That's how trust is built in a relationship. That's how love deepens in a family. That's how loyalty is forged in a team. Not by demanding it, not by controlling it, but by creating it through connection. That lost dog taught me something profound. Connection doesn't always need words. Sometimes it's in a look, in a touch, in the energy you radiate. And the same is true with people. You don't always have to have the perfect thing to say. You don't need to fix everything. Sometimes what transforms someone's life is simply showing up with your presence, your compassion, and your willingness to stay. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most alive, most loved, most secure. I guarantee you, it wasn't because of material things. It wasn't because of money or success. It was because of connection. It was because of the way someone made you feel. That's the real currency of life. The bonds we build, the trust we create, the love we share. Everything else fades. Connection lasts. And here's the beauty of it: the more you give connection, the more you receive it. The more you invest in creating trust, the more trust you experience. The more you lead with love, the more love comes back into your life. It's not a transaction, it's transformation. That little dog reminded me that even in the smallest encounters, connection can shift everything. He went from trembling and afraid to calm and safe, not because the world around him suddenly changed, but because someone showed up and made him feel he wasn't alone. That's the gift we all have the power to give. And the truth is, when we give it, we're not just rescuing others, we're rescuing ourselves. Because connection doesn't just heal the one who receives it, it heals the one who gives it. Connection creates transformation. One of the greatest lessons I've learned in life is that what you give doesn't disappear. It multiplies. When I rescued that little lost dog, I didn't do it expecting anything in return. I wasn't thinking about reward. I wasn't calculating whether it would benefit me. I simply acted out of care. And yet, what I received back from that experience was far greater than anything I gave. His trust, his relief, the sense of knowing I made a difference. That was priceless. And it reminded me that when you give, when you extend yourself for someone else, the return is never just equal. It's tenfold. So many people live life in this transactional mindset. They hold back their kindness, their love, their generosity because they think, what if I don't get it back? What if it's not appreciated? What if it's wasted? But here's the truth. You can never waste genuine giving, because what you give to others, you're also giving to yourself. You're building your own strength, your own fulfillment, your own joy. The energy you put into the world circles back in ways you can't always predict, but it always comes back. Think about it. How do you feel when you do something for someone without being asked, without looking for acknowledgement? That glow inside you, that sense of purpose, that's life rewarding you instantly. It's your soul expanding. And even beyond that, it sets something bigger into motion. Because energy is contagious. Compassion inspires compassion. Generosity inspires generosity. Love inspires love. You never know who's watching, who's being touched by your example, who's going to pay it forward because you chose to give. That little dog couldn't speak, couldn't say thank you, couldn't repay me with anything material. But the look in his eyes, the calm in his body, that was the return. And that energy stayed with me. It lifted me for the rest of the day. It reminded me of what's possible when we give freely. And that's the kind of wealth no bank can measure, no market can control. That's the wealth of the heart. We're conditioned to believe that if we give too much, we'll be empty. That if we love too much, we'll be taken advantage of. That if we sacrifice, we'll lose. But the opposite is true. When you hold back, you shrink. When you give, you grow. The more love you give, the more love you feel. The more kindness you spread, the more it surrounds you. The more value you create for others, the more value flows into your life. It doesn't always come from the same source, and it doesn't always show up immediately, but it always finds its way back. I've seen this play out time and time again. A small act of giving turns into a ripple that changes someone's entire life. You never know how far your actions reach. Maybe you rescue a dog, and that act inspires someone else to rescue a person. Maybe you lift up a friend, and that gives them the strength to go lift up their child. Maybe your kindness to a stranger saves them from despair in a moment you didn't even realize. This is the power of giving. It never ends with you. It multiplies beyond you. The world is constantly reflecting back the energy you put into it. When you give resentment, you receive resentment. When you give love, you receive love. And when you choose to give more than you think you can, you discover just how abundant you really are. Scarcity says, hold back, there's not enough. Abundance says, give because there's always more. And life always rewards the abundant heart. That day with the lost dog taught me something unforgettable. Giving is never about losing. It's about gaining more of what really matters. And every time we choose to give, we step into a bigger version of ourselves. Because in the end, what you give doesn't leave you. It returns multiplied, stronger, and richer than you could ever imagine. What you give returns tenfold. When I look back on that moment of rescuing the lost dog, I realized something deeper was happening. Yes, I was helping him. Yes, I was giving him safety and comfort. But in truth, he was helping me just as much, maybe even more. Because as much as we like to believe we're the rescuers, sometimes the act of stepping in to serve, to care, to lift someone or something else up, becomes the very thing that rescues us. That's the paradox of life. When you get outside of yourself, you end up finding yourself. I remember holding that dog and feeling his heartbeat racing, his body trembling with fear. And as I calmed him, as I whispered that it was going to be okay, I realized I was whispering it to myself too. How many times do we go through life carrying fear, uncertainty, loneliness, and we just hide it well? On the outside, we act like we've got it handled, but inside there are parts of us that feel lost. And in serving that little dog, I came face to face with that truth. He wasn't the only one who needed rescuing. I did too. We all reach points in life where we feel stuck, overwhelmed, or broken. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there right now. And in those moments, the easiest thing to do is to retreat, to focus on your own pain, to get lost in your own problems. But that's also when you become trapped. The key to breaking free is to shift the focus from yourself to something or someone else. Because service heals. Contribution heals. When you give to others, you remind yourself that you are more than your pain, more than your problems, more than your fears. That day, rescuing that dog reminded me that strength isn't built in isolation. Strength is built in those moments where you choose to serve, even when you don't feel like you have much to give. It's in the act of caring that you awaken the parts of yourself that have been asleep. It's in the act of loving that you remember your own capacity for love. By serving, you discover that you're not as broken as you thought. You're not as weak as you believed. You're not as lost as you feared. And here's what's powerful. You don't have to wait for some grand opportunity to rescue yourself. You don't need a perfect plan, or the right timing, or a huge platform. You just need a willingness to step into the moment in front of you. That's where the transformation begins. It's in the small acts of service, the quiet moments of compassion, the choices you make when no one's watching. Those are the moments that rebuild your spirit, piece by piece. So many people think they'll feel fulfilled once their life is fixed, once they've healed, once everything is perfect. But it's actually the opposite. Healing begins the moment you stop waiting for perfection and start giving where you are. Serving others doesn't just change their lives, it changes you in the process. And sometimes, the very thing you thought was about rescuing someone else turns out to be the exact thing that rescues you. That's what happened with me. That little dog didn't just need someone to take him home. He needed someone to remind him that he wasn't abandoned, that he wasn't invisible, that he wasn't forgotten. And in giving him that, I was reminded of the same truths. I was reminded that I wasn't abandoned either. That no matter how heavy life feels, there's always meaning, always purpose, always an opportunity to rise beyond myself by being there for another. So, when you find yourself lost, don't wait for someone to show up and save you. Go save someone else. Go give. Go serve. Because in the process, you'll find your strength again. You'll find your heart again. You'll find yourself again. And when you do, you'll realize that every act of service is really a rescue mission. For them, yes, but also for you. By rescuing others, you rescue yourself. When I think back to that day, I realize it was never just about rescuing a dog. It was about rediscovering who I am and who we all are at our core. Compassion is power. Challenges are opportunities in disguise. Connection transforms lives. What you give always comes back to you. And when you step outside of yourself to serve, you end up rescuing the lost pieces of your own soul too. That little moment on the street wasn't random. It was a reminder of what life is always teaching us if we're willing to listen. The way you show up in the smallest moments shapes who you become in the biggest ones. So my message to you is simple. Don't walk past your moments. Don't turn away from the opportunities that don't look convenient. Don't underestimate the power of compassion, of connection, of giving. Because every time you choose to step in, every time you choose to care, every time you choose to serve, you're not just changing someone else's life, you're transforming your own. And in the end, that's the real rescue.